Given the behaviour of some of the billionaires that own the Premier League's richest and most powerful football clubs in recent weeks, along with the presidents and chairmen of the likes of Juventus and Real Madrid, you could quite legitimately accuse the money men at the top of the European game of running their clubs like cartels, trying to drive up profits and restrict competition through nefarious and coordinated means. For the uber-rich, there tend to be three possible reasons for buying a football club. The first is simply as a plaything. Many multi-billionaires can afford to splurge on a toy to mess around with until they get bored with it and retreat back to their mega yachts. The second is as a genuine business venture, a sort of unorthodox method of diversification. If you take the example of Liverpool or Manchester United, despite already enjoying extraordinary wealth, the motivation of John Henry and the Glazers is, and indeed was, quite evidently to further their own personal fortunes. And then thirdly, you have those who don't really care about whether it's fun, whether they make any money, and don't even really care about football at all. For these guys, owning a football club is a vehicle of legitimacy, and both profile and reputation enhancement. If you're the ruler, or one of the rulers, of a despotic human rights abusing Gulf state, or an oligarch who acquired your fortune by actively contributing to the destruction of the planet, then football can be a great way to cloak yourself in a thin veil of legitimacy, and make you better known for moments like Sergio Aguero's last gasp title-winning goal against Queen's Park Rangers than for being part of one of the ruling families in a country where the state murders gay people. There are also, in extremely rare circumstances, billionaires who actually like football. And of course, the owners of some clubs may mix and match various combinations of the above motives, rather than possessing just one. Those are all coherent reasons for multi-billionaires to buy elite-level football clubs. But as we step a little further down the footballing food chain to those who never came close to getting an invite to the so-called Super League, we find another motive for owning a football club. These are attractions that appeal to gangsters and mobsters of the more formally and openly accepted illegal variety. That's right, today's video is all about another of football's grubby little secrets that most people either don't know about or don't like to acknowledge. So settle down, strap in, and join me on a journey to one of Europe's most exclusive and expensive coastlines, which has a murky past all of its own, as we hone in on a little-known Spanish football club accused of having links with the Russian Mafia in a tale involving saviours, deceit, and death. If I were to say the word Marbella to you, your first thought would probably be one of expansive beaches, partying, and the luxury district of Puerto Banús with its yachts, penthouse apartments, and high-end shops. Here in the UK at least, Marbella is thought of along similar lines to Mykonos or Ibiza, as a fairly expensive, often party or nightlife-orientated summer holiday destination. Belonging to the province of Malaga and part of the autonomous community of Andalusia, Marbella is often considered to be the most glamorous destination in the Costa del Sol, and the region's largest, home to some 141,000 residents. One thing that the city isn't known for is its football team. Marbella FC were founded in 1997 following the collapse of Club Atletico Marbella, but Marbella's seemingly inconsequential football club tells a tale of the city all of its own, and there is a fascinating past that lies behind the team's rather nondescript facade. The Estadio Municipal de Marbella has played host to some of the most celebrated music artists of all time due to its location. But when the council-owned ground isn't playing host to the likes of Michael Jackson, Prince and Queen, it is a rather unremarkable venue in truth. But then again, on a footballing front, Marbella have rarely justified requiring anything more extravagant. The city's former club, Atletico Marbella, peaked in the early 1990s, finishing 7th in the Segunda Division in the 1992-93 season, sandwiched between Real Madrid and Barcelona's B teams. This relative success came under the ownership of Jesus Gil, a man who is himself far better associated with one of Spain's more pre-eminent clubs. Gil is a man often described as colourful, charismatic and outspoken by his supporters, and as a bigoted, corrupt crook who was responsible for the deaths of 58 people by his detractors. Gil made his fortune in the construction business, founding a company which built gated communities during the 1960s. In 1969, a complex that Hill had built named Los Angeles de San Rafael, around 5 miles outside of the town of San Rafael, collapsed, killing 58 people. It later transpired that not a single architect, surveyor, or building planner had been hired at any stage during the construction process, and that the collapse had been caused due to unset concrete. Hill was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but after just 18 months, he was given a pardon by Spain's fascist dictator Francisco Franco. Hill was himself a Francoist who continued to support Francoist ideals and expressed anti-democratic sentiments long after Franco's death in 1975 and Spain's transition to becoming a parliamentary democracy in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Hill first arrived in Marbella in 1986, planting roots and setting up his business there. A year later, Hill was elected president of Atletico Madrid, later becoming the club's majority shareholder as well. His reign in Madrid was as controversial as every other facet of Hill's life, with racist and homophobic slurs becoming a common theme of his pre- and post-match analysis. Naturally then, in 1991, Hill entered politics, founding a political party named Grupo Independiente Liberal, or Hill for short. A self-styled far-right populist, Hill was tough on crime when it came to homelessness and prostitution, but rather more lenient when it came to arms dealers, mafiosos, and former Nazis. And I mean literal Nazis. Marbella was already a popular destination for European gangsters before Hill was elected mayor in 1991, but the city stepped it up a notch under his premiership. He also siphoned off an enormous amount of public money, at least $50 million, during his years in office, in addition to stealing around $20 million from Atletico Madrid, that we know of. Interestingly enough, Hill's son, Miguel Angel Hilmarin, remains Atletico Madrid's CEO and majority shareholder, having inherited the club's shares upon his father's death, very controversially so, and he was the man who spearheaded Atletico's drive to participate in the so-called Super League. In addition to owning Spain's third or fourth most successful football club, depending upon your criteria, Hill also owned Club Atletico Marbella. Like a number of millionaire politicians, Hill thought owning the city's local club could prove to be a handy tool, and he kept hold of it for almost a decade. The real estate tycoon, TV presenting populist, whose career foreshadowed Donald Trump's in many respects, sold Atletico Marbella to Slobodan Petrovic in 1995. Now, Petrovic was the frontman in a Yugoslavian disco and dance band who had one hit named Weekend Phobia in 1977. After the band split up, Petrovic became a DJ, then a novelist, and finally a businessman, enjoying the most success in the last of those three careers. In his first season owning the club, Atletico Marbella were relegated from the Segunda Division in last place. The following year, they finished last once again, this time in the Segunda Division B, and the club collapsed under the weight of mounting debts and was dissolved. It is worth noting that the disco-loving, novel-writing Slobodan Petrovic, who guided Atletico Marbella to extinction, is not the same Slobodan Petrovic that currently serves as the Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Kosovo, just in case there was any confusion. Marbella is a sizable city though, and it didn't take long for a Phoenix club to rise from Atletico Marbella's ashes. Union Deportivo Marbella were founded in 1997 and had to start out in Spain's regional 5th tier. They won promotion in their maiden campaign, followed by a second promotion in 2003, prompting a return to the Segunda B. Having consolidated in the 3rd tier over the next few seasons, there was another takeover at the club in 2007, as British businessmen Ian Radford and Wayne Elliott acquired the club, which you can sort of not really see in this absolutely appalling photograph. A curious duo themselves, Radford and Elliott ran a business called HI Group, who primarily put on pre-season training camps for clubs in Marbella. Their website, which looks as though it was built in 2007 and hasn't been updated since, includes testimonials from Martin O'Neill, Alan Pardew, and Steve Bruce. Twice. It would seem that Brucey was a big fan before he bought his holiday home in the Algarve, and he stayed true to his word of visiting again. Radford and Elliott also appear to have worked as representatives or agents to players at one time, but they were less effective when it came to owning a club. Udi Marbella were relegated in 2010 during a season in which they lost 8-0 to Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey. Over the next few years, Marbella began to hemorrhage cash, and their British owners desperately sought out external investors. By January 2013, the club was once again teetering on the verge of extinction. For all the city's wealthy residents and visitors, it seemed no one was willing to stump up the cash to keep Udi Marbella afloat. And then, along came Alexander Grimback, buying the club for the token price of just €1, but injecting the required cash to stave off administration and to make Marbella competitive once again. Grimback, whose yacht was moored at Puerto Banos, also bought a struggling golf course and clubhouse, along with a local bottled water company who were also seemingly on the verge of going bankrupt. Grimback almost immediately changed Marbella's name from Udi Marbella to Marbella Football Club, or Marbella FC, citing increased appeal to a global audience as his motive. And, well, it worked. Marbella won the Tercera Division, then the Segunda B, then the Segunda, then La Liga, then the Champions League, and finally the FIFA Club World Cup to be crowned champions of world football. Yeah, alright, maybe not. Grimback and his associates did turn Marbella's fortunes around though. Initially, short-term signings were made to ensure survival in the Tercera Division, which the club did, finishing the season in mid-table. Former La Liga centre-back Jaime Molina, who actually starred for Marbella during their record-high league finish of 1992-93, was appointed as first-team boss, alongside Lauren. They proved to be an instant hit, guiding Marbella to the league title and promotion the following season. Further progress was made over the next few years, as Marbella climbed to a 7th place finish in the Segunda B in 2016-17, but shortly after the start of the following season, the news broke. Marbella's offices were raided, Alexander Grimback was arrested, and so too were 6 of his associates. The raid and arrests might have seemed sudden, but in truth, detectives had been following the case for years. Local police had been brought in to work alongside Europol on their ongoing investigation into organised crime groups, or OCGs, and their involvement in European football. The active investigation, codenamed Operation Oligarch, followed on from Operation Madrioscas, which had cracked a pretty major Russian mafia operation going on at Jose Mourinho's former club, União de Leira, in Portugal, and they believed that was just the beginning of a string of exposés, arrests, and ultimately convictions. You see, sport has always been fertile ground for gangsters, criminals, and rogues of all shapes and sizes, from Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar to Serbian criminal Arkan. Though it is rarely talked about among sports fans these days, the corruption, match-fixing and money laundering business, in sport alone, is estimated to be a £78 billion business globally, with lucrative European football leagues thought to be the epicentre of much of this sports-based criminality. The art of money laundering is mixing legal and illegal money in an attempt to make the ill-gotten gains of criminal activity more opaque. That is something that is very easy to do if you own a football club, due to gate receipts, transfers both in and out of the club, sponsorship income, agents' fees, wages, and so on and so forth. In short, there are lots of incomings and outgoings, meaning that there is a pretty rapid turnover of cash. That tends to be the primary motive for OCGs to buy football clubs, but there are also other opportunities for criminality and corruption, most notably in the form of match fixing. Europol's investigation found OCG involvement at clubs in Austria, Estonia, Spain, Germany, Portugal, Latvia, Moldova, and in the United Kingdom. Europol dropped their investigation of organised crimes involvement at an unnamed club or clubs in the United Kingdom after the UK left the European Union, thus withdrawing from Europol, and there does not appear to have been any subsequent UK investigation opened up, at least as far as I can tell. So, there is likely some mafia or gangster involvement at either one or multiple clubs in the UK, but those involved have been able to breathe a sigh of relief, for now at least. One man who couldn't breathe a sigh of relief was Alexander Grimback though, who had now been locked up in a prison cell. OCGs who want to launder money often tend to target distressed clubs and companies, where they can quickly deploy cash to pay down debts. That is exactly what Grimback and his associates had done in Marbella with all three of their businesses, which may have been what first aroused Europol's suspicions. Udi Marbella, as they were then, certainly met that description, as a club on the brink. Despite being in a city of over 140,000 people, many residents in Marbella seem to support Malaga, Real Madrid, or Barcelona, or just tend to be expats and immigrants with more interest in playing golf than watching football. Despite a capacity of 7,000, Marbella's average attendance is made up of around 1,000 fiercely loyal and passionate supporters, who still adore Grimback for saving their club. Many sent him letters of support in prison as the Russian maintained his innocence. This is easy to understand. Grimback communicated well with fans, and aside from just saving the club, he also invested in them, stabilised them, and oversaw the team's transition into an SAD, giving supporters a say in how the club was run. Clearly, Europol and Marbella's local authorities didn't view Grimback and his associates as being quite so benevolent. They felt that the Marbella-based Russian nationals belonged to either the Solnitsevskaya or Izhmailovskaya crime syndicate groups, or mafias in plain English. The raid and arrests were part of a 5-year investigation into both groups, and Europol estimated that they could have laundered up to €30 million through Marbella FC, their golf club, and their bottled water business, and hundreds of millions across Europe in general. All of the suspects were later released on bail, Grimback having to put up a €750,000 bail in order to ensure his release, though they remain banned from leaving Spain until the investigation has been concluded. In March 2019, 18 months after the initial arrests, one of Grimback's associates, Arnold Spivakovskaya, better known as Arnold Tam, was found dead at his home in Spain. Though it was one of a number of deaths among individuals with suspected links to organised crime in Russia, the authorities didn't suspect foul play in Tam's death, though it did come as a pretty significant blow to the authorities investigating the case. Following his arrest, Grimback's assets had been frozen, which meant that players and staff were going unpaid. Eventually, he had to relinquish his control of the club, though notably not his entire stake. Grimback reportedly entertained offers from Saudi Arabia, Belgium and the USA before selling the club to Hong Kong-based holding company Guarniao Group Limited. Well, that, if you can pronounce that, it's that. And whatever they're called, they're led by a man named Zhao Zhen, who became Marbella's club president. Grimback claims that he deliberated over the move because he wanted to ensure that the club remained in safe hands, describing the sale as, quote, "the most difficult decision I have made in my life." In November 2018, the sale was completed, controversially, despite the fact that Grimback's assets were still frozen. The Belgian-based brokers somehow managed to complete the transaction despite those circumstances, though it wasn't revealed how many shares that person, whatever they're called, that company, and Zhao Zhen, their president, had actually bought, just that Grimback had retained a 22% stake in the club. When the authorities seized Marbella's offices and Grimback and his associates' property and yacht, they found stacks of cash, 23 luxury cars including Porsches, Bentleys and Ferraris, and several firearms. The investigation is still ongoing. Despite much skepticism among Marbella's fans towards their new Chinese owners and disappointment at Grimback and Co.'s goodbyes, they have thus far shown plenty of ambition. Most notably with the signing of former Real Madrid star Esteban Granero, still aged only 23. Granero joined Marbella from Mallorca following the club's La Liga relegation in 2010, and he briefly lined up alongside his former QPR teammate Alejandro Faulin in the Costa del Sol. Marbella's new owners are now trying to rectify the club's longest-standing problem, their home ground, by building a new luxurious stadium capable of accommodating 18,000 fans, with 2,000 underground car parking spaces, in addition to a hotel and a swimming pool. It has long been felt that Marbella's rundown stadium is what has prevented the club from growing their attendances, and that theory may be put to the test before long. At the time of this recording, Marbella sits second in the Segunda Division B Group C table, 2 points behind league leaders Granada 2, with 5 games of the season remaining. That is it for today's video, but thank you all as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter or Instagram, or both, via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.